Hey folks, I'm Brendan, and you're watching the Overqualified Henchman. Luke Cage is coming to Netflix at the end of September, and I am hyped! I thought Mike Coulter knocked it out of the park on Jessica Jones, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of him as Cage. It's definitely the more modern take on the character, thoughtful and worldly wise. We're talking about the master of the rope-a-dope here. He'll take anything you can throw at him, he'll bide his time, and then when the moment is right, bam, lights out. Today, though, we're going to be taking a trip back to the 1970s and looking at a slightly different take on the character. Back to a time when the paint on the Hero for Hire sign hadn't had a chance to dry yet. Back to a time when Cage wore a metal tiara, a yellow silk shirt, and matching boots, and he made it work. Back to a time when Cage was the baddest streetwise Hercules on this or any other block. Back to Luke Cage Hero for Hire number 8 and number 9 to relive one of the all-time greatest superhero moments. When Dr. Doom, ruler of Latveria and old enemy of the Fantastic Four, learned that when you hire Luke Cage, you'd best be ready to pay up. I'm not going to get too deep into Power Man's origin story here, but there's two things you need to know about Cage going into this. First off, he's the man with the steel-hard skin. Knives, bullets, doesn't make any difference to Cage. Now he's got super strength too, those powers tend to go hand in hand, but most characters put the emphasis on the super strength. With Cage, it's always about how tough he is, and that's an important part of the character. Nobody pushes Luke Cage around, nobody makes him afraid to walk down the street in his own neighborhood. He is unbreakable. The second thing you need to know is that he's broke, as in money. He doesn't live in some skyscraper like the Fantastic Four or a mansion like the Avengers. He's not a successful lawyer or doctor like your Matt Murdocks or your Donald Blakes. And he never tried to use his powers to become a celebrity like Peter Parker. All Cage wants is to do an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. Which is frustrating because it's never that easy. Which is why, as we open issue number 8, Luke Cage is one mad citizen. And when Cage gets mad, he can cut loose with a stream of expletives that lasts 3 hours and never repeats itself. The next time you get in a shouting match with someone, consider calling them a jive-talking, freaking motherless candidate for the Psycho Hatch. 40 years later, and there's still not really a good comeback to that. Now, if you want to know why Cage is so upset, you're gonna have to go back and read those previous issues for yourself. But suffice to say, when some joker in a three-piece suit shows up looking to hire him, he's not in the mood. Instead, he spots and runs after a guy who tried to kill him previously. People who tried to kill Cage previously being a pretty long list. In this case, his name happens to be Georgie Sims, and he's bad with 3 A's. He threatens to cut Cage from ear to toenail, to which Cage replies, "Georgie, you couldn't cut school." Classic Cage. Now we're gonna skip over a truly misguided use of Yiddish and pause just long enough to say hi to Dr. Claire Temple. Hi, Claire. And then head back to Luke's office where Mr. Three-Piece Suit is still waiting. Turns out he's a middleman. His employer wants to hire Cage and is willing to pay $200 a day. In 1970s money, that gets Cage's attention, and it sounds like an easy gig. Apparently there's 4 guys who stole some corporate secrets, and they want Cage to track them down. Couldn't be simpler. So Luke hits the bricks and does his detective thing, and before long his yellow boot is smashing through rotted timber, announcing his presence in no uncertain terms. And this is where things start to go off the rails, because it turns out these 4 guys, they can take a punch from Luke like it's a love tap, and all of a sudden he's outnumbered and outgunned. They make it clear they're planning to kill Cage, so with no other choice, he stops holding back and crack! Stark, staring, stultifying amazement. This cat's a robot! The other 3 androids escape, and Cage is starting to feel like maybe his employer left out a few details. He tracks down the guy with the mustache to an embassy, barges in, and is about to shake some answers out of him when all of a sudden, "Stop! Leave that man alone! No one manhandles a loyal subject of Dr. Doom!" To which Cage understandably replies, "Dr. what?" Come on. Now, Doom points out that maybe the guy with bulletproof skin shouldn't be quite so surprised to run into stuff like robots. Welcome to a shared universe. Turns out these robots went rogue, escaped Latveria for the United States, and Cage decides that he might not like the way Doom went about it, but he's got as much right to hire him as anybody else. Job's a job. And the job's unfinished, so he tracks down the remaining 3 androids, and not surprisingly, it turns out they're not interested in talking. After the brutal fight that follows, the only one left standing is Cage. Luke didn't have a lot of choice, but he sure doesn't like it, so he heads back over to the Latverian embassy to give Doom a piece of his mind. When he gets there, though, he finds out that not only has Doom already headed back to Latveria, he never intended to pay Cage in the first place. That's how you want to play it, Doom? You motherless son of a witch, you'll find out how Luke Cage plays it. He's coming for you, Doom. Some way, somehow, he's gonna nail you to the wall. What happens next? Well, you're just gonna have to tune in next week for part 2 of Luke Cage versus Dr. Doom. Say, what a great excuse to click that subscribe button down there. The channel just passed 200 subscribers, so there's still time to get in on the ground floor, but you might not want to wait too long. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week, and until then, keep on henching.